Imagine you get a second chance at life, only to be branded a heretic and thrown onto an island of monsters. Well, they made one huge mistake. They had no idea about the secret power he was hiding. Before we jump in, if you enjoy stories like this, please follow the channel and share this explainer. It genuinely helps this page grow and allows me to create more stories for you.
Our story kicks off with a boy named Leo, but not the Leo who would one day change everything. No, this story begins with a boy whose whole world was the four walls of a hospital room. His first life was incredibly short, fragile, and the only soundtrack was the constant, sterile beep of medical machines.
I mean, think about it. He never felt the warm sun on his skin or the cool grass under his feet. His only real escape, his only window to a world he could shape, was a simple little handheld gardening game. It was his own pixelated paradise, a place he could nurture and grow, but one he could never, ever actually visit.
So as that first life of his began to fade away, his very last thought wasn't angry or bitter. It was just a simple, desperate wish, whispered into the emptiness. A wish for a real chance to live. And, in a world that runs on gods and magic, sometimes those wishes are answered.
So, boom, he wakes up. But this time, there's no beeping machine. Instead, he sees multiple moons hanging in a sky he's never laid eyes on before. He was a baby again, but with all his memories perfectly intact, reborn into a world that was just crackling with magic. This was it, a real second chance.
But this new life, well, it didn't exactly start easy. He was abandoned on a cold, hard street. But then he was saved by this incredibly kind priest who took him in and became his father. For the first time ever, Leo felt what it was like to be truly happy. He had a family. He had a future.
See, in this new world, there's this thing called the blessing. It's basically a holy seal that the gods grant to children, giving them all kinds of special abilities. And on his 10th birthday, Leo secretly discovered the name of his own patron god, and he felt this strange, warm power bloom on his chest.
And the power he got, it wasn't for fighting battles or gaining glory. No, it was something so much more personal. He got the ability to create his very own private world, a living, breathing garden, a perfect copy of that little game he loved so much in his first life. Everything he'd ever wanted was finally real.
For 2 incredible years, he secretly tended his garden and loved his new life. His heart was just overflowing with gratitude. So the day of his official blessing ceremony, when he turned 12, it was supposed to be a celebration. It was the day he would finally dedicate his life to the gods who gave him this impossible dream.
He was just 12 years old, standing in front of the high priests in the temple. This was it. This was the moment his happiness was supposed to be locked in forever, his place in the world made official. He was so ready. He proudly puffed out his chest to show them the holy seal that had appeared there. And in that huge, beautiful chamber, everything went silent, just dead quiet. The smiles on the priests' faces completely vanished, replaced by this look of pure, unfiltered horror. And that's when a figure steps out from the shadows, a cold-looking inquisitor in a dark hood. His eyes lock onto the seal on Leo's chest, and he speaks 2 words. Just 2 words that completely shatter this boy's entire world. 2 words that turned his divine gift into a heretic's curse. Evil God.
Before he could even ask why, before he could even scream for his father, it was already over. Temple guards grabbed him. They shoved a rough gag into his mouth, cutting off his frantic questions. He was dragged out of the temple, his dream twisting into a nightmare, and then just thrown into the dark hold of a waiting ship.
He woke up to the rocking of the ship, completely bound and helpless. When the ship finally stopped, they didn't set him free. No, they just pushed him down a gangplank onto a rickety dock on some remote, desolate island and left him. His second chance had just become a death sentence.
He watched as the ship just disappeared over the horizon, leaving him utterly alone. The air was thick with the sounds of growling. This island wasn't just empty, it was a prison, a graveyard for anyone the world wanted to forget, leaving just one terrifying question hanging in the air. How do you survive a place that was designed to be your tomb?
Monstrous beasts with dagger-like claws stalked the forests. His pocket garden, the only sanctuary he had, was only accessible for a few hours a day. After that, he was locked out for 24 hours. He was being hunted, He was terrified, and he was completely alone. That warm hope he'd felt was quickly freezing into the cold, hard ice of despair. The only place he could hide from the nightly terrors was a tiny patch of ground tucked into the roots of this giant, ancient tree. It was like some invisible barrier kept the monsters away, and it was there, shivering through the bone-chilling cold, that he really began to understand what hopelessness felt like.
But it turns out he wasn't entirely alone. He was being watched. He'd see other exiled kids, but they always kept their distance. And they'd talk about one girl in these hushed, scared whispers. They called her a devil. Her name was Lyra.
Now, she never spoke to him, not a single word, but her actions, they were a lifeline. When he was on the brink of starvation, he'd wake up to find a little pile of fresh fruit left near his tree. When he was lost, a strange rustle in the bushes would somehow guide him to a hidden spring. She was like a ghost, a silent guardian in this green hell.
Then one night, a deadly fever took hold. An unnatural cold sunk into his bones, the same kind of cold he remembered from the very end of his first life. As he was lying there, helpless, fading away, his little shelter opened. It was Lyra. Wordlessly, she laid down beside him, wrapped her arms around him, and just shared her body heat until the fever finally broke at dawn. She saved his life.
Staring at the girl who had just kept him from dying, it all finally clicked for Leo. The world, the other kids, they all saw a devil, probably because of her strange appearance. But all he saw was the person who had shown him more kindness than anyone on this entire God-forsaken island. He reached out his hand and asked for her name.
And that one simple act of friendship, it changed everything. They weren't just two lonely souls trying to survive anymore. They were two outcasts with a purpose. They realized the world had given them a death sentence, but his power gave them a choice. The very power that got him exiled, the ability to create a perfect garden, was now the key to building a brand new home. He realized his so-called curse wasn't a curse at all. It was the path that led him to find someone just as lost as he was. The world had abandoned them on an island that was meant to be their grave. So together, they decided to make it their garden.
And that leaves us with one final lingering question. When does your true life really begin? Is it when you're born, or is it only after the world you knew has completely ended and you're forced to build a new one from the ashes? If this story moved you or made you think differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and follow the channel for more stories like this.